and you speak nothing or next to nothing of the local language, in either situation, it is not a good look. It is not a good look. It's a very bad look. Let me talk to you a little bit about a couple interviews that I did this week and last week. There's two of them in particular that I want to point out. One of them is the worst interview I've ever. The other one is one where I was like, ooh, maybe I said too much. So, for example, there was one person that I was interviewing, and at the end of the interview, one of my staff told me, they said, she almost cried. And I said, really? Why? I was so surprised because, as you guys know, the way that I engage here in the live stream is very much the way that I engage with people in real life. I'm still friendly, very kind. I don't try to push or press down anyone. And what ended up happening was I was asking her some questions about why she made the decisions that she made from university to her last job and why she's applying for this job at the agency, right? And so she was having a lot of trouble kind of like putting it together. That's my observation. When I was interviewing her, she wasn't sure. She's like, well, I don't know. I got to think about it. And she was trying to explain her reasoning behind why she chose to do the jobs that she chose. And what ended up happening was I said, hey, let me help you out. And I gave her a breakdown of her life, basically. I said to her, okay, based on your resume and what you've told me so far, I think that I understand why you made your decisions in your life. I'm going to tell you and you tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And I went on to literally explain to her from the time that she started university, why she chose that university, why she chose that major, why when she left school, she ended up working in a field that's not related to her major, why she stayed in that field that's not related, why she took her second and third job, why she quit her job, and why she's trying to work at my agency now. So basically, I broke down like the last 10 or so years of her life. And I didn't realize it because I was thinking as I was talking and I was kind of going through the process. I wasn't looking at her. And then she's like, yeah, that sounds about right, And in the end, we didn't hire her because she's not what we were looking for. But one of my staff members, one of them that I actually put her to do interviews for me at the beginning to like qualify people. Yeah, she told me like, dude, she almost cried. And I said, why? What happened? I didn't say anything bad, right? She's like, no, but the way that you broke down her whole life and you knew exactly what she was doing and what she was thinking at each point may have made her feel that her life is boring. It may have made her feel bland. And I said, oh, that's not my intention. Shit, I need to be more careful next time. I want to tell you guys about the worst interview I have done in years. This person, first of all, they were referred by one of the friends, okay? One of the friends has referred this person to come interview for my agency. And they didn't send a resume. They didn't look up the agency, the company. They didn't check what we do. They didn't check how we do it. They didn't try to create any sort of supporting evidence saying like, oh, this is how I can support your team, support your company. This is how I can be helpful. Nothing. They did nothing. They just walked in and sort of like expected to be handed a job because a friend referred them. And this is their body language the whole time is like this, like, oh, yeah, whatever. And basically, this is a local person who has a degree from a Western country. I'm going to say that. But I've actually interviewed quite a few people, local people, who have Western degrees, right? And then when my team sees that, they're impressed. They're like, oh, she has a degree from Australia, or she has a degree from Canada or the USA, right? And I tell my team, I'm like, please, whenever you see people who have Western degrees, do not be impressed. There's a reason why they have Western degrees, and it's usually not a good one. If it is a good reason, it will be obvious, but do not be impressed by this. Hell yeah, I was right. This girl had horrible body language, horrible communication skills, and it was so like disrespectful. Let me tell you, the moment I walked into the interview, I have someone else who's interviewing her first. That's what I usually do, just to qualify the person, right? The moment I walked into the interview, this is what she says. And you can tell me if I'm overreacting, okay? You tell me if I'm overreacting. She says, 这个也是免受我吗? Bro, excuse me? Like, 这个也是免受我吗? I was like, who the fuck do you think you are? Bro, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm overreacting. But that threw me off. I'm like, did you just refer to me as a it? As a this thing? What the And like after that, in that moment, I decided, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna hire this person. 100%. I let my colleague continue the interview. I went up, I talked to one of the managers. I said, absolutely no to this person. Don't waste our time. Bro. And then I talked to my colleague who was doing the interview first. And I said, is that like normal? Like what's going on? And no, I had two other girls interview her, one before me and one after me. And they both said, this girl is very disrespectful. She is very rude. And I said, okay, because I asked them, I said, am I overreacting? Is it because, am I misunderstanding the Chinese here? Because it seems to me that was a very rude gesture. And they both were like, oh my God, why is she being rude to me? I didn't do anything. Not me, but to them as well. So it was a hell no. I don't understand how someone can walk into an interview with such confidence, believing that they are above the process because a friend referred them. Listen, just because someone's friend referred you to a job doesn't mean that the job is guaranteed. And this is a very good example. And just because you have an American degree or an Australian degree or whatever, also does not guarantee you a job. Just so we're clear. But you know what's a really big, bright red flag? I'm sorry if this applies to you, but please look in the mirror. If you are a local person that went to the United States or Canada or Australia or England, and you have 2 degrees from these countries, bachelor's, master's, whatever, and you come back to China and you cannot speak English, not even halfway as good as a local person who has never left China, you really need to get your priorities straight. That's all I need to say on that topic. If you studied in university in a native English speaking country and you still can't speak English and you got those degrees, that tells me everything that I need to know. If my girls in my agency that have never left China, they don't have any foreign boyfriends or anything like that, and they speak better English than you do, by a long shot, there is a problem. And the problem is not me. I'm just gonna put that out there. Let's break it down. Let's do this seriously. Whether you are a local person who studied in a native English country for several years in an English-speaking country, and you come back to your country and you can't speak English well, or you are a foreigner who has lived in China or Japan or whatever for 5 years or 10 years, and you speak nothing or next to nothing of the local language, in either situation, it is not a good look. It is not a good look. It's a very bad look, because your inability to even use the local language, I don't expect you to be like advanced, super high level. I expect you to have at least daily communication skills, right? Moderate level. If you cannot even speak the local language at a basic level, but you lived in the country for something like 5 years or 10 years, and you studied there, and you got a degree there, or if you're a foreigner working in that country, that's a very bad look. It means that you don't know how to integrate. It means that you don't know how to adapt. It's either you don't know how or you don't want to. In either situation, for me, as a job interviewer, right, or as a company or a business owner, where the position that you are applying for requires you to communicate with a lot of different people from a lot of different countries and backgrounds, your ability to adapt, your ability to connect with people of different backgrounds, of different cultures, is super important. I would argue that it is the most important thing, right? So if you have been living in a certain country where everyone speaks X local language and you haven't picked up any of that, that tells me a lot about your personality. Now, if you are just very antisocial, that's okay. You are antisocial, you don't like to go out there, the culture is very different, you don't like to mix with locals. All right, that is your prerogative. I will not judge you as a person, as an individual for making that decision. I think that's okay. But as an interviewer and as a business owner, I will 100% judge you based on that decision. Because if I don't judge you, how am I going to be able to do a good job selecting the quality of the people who are going to be working at my agency, who are going to be working at my business? As an interviewer, my job is literally to judge you based on these sort of decisions, especially if you are applying for a job that requires you to have good people skills and communicate and engage with people of different backgrounds who speak different languages, who have different cultures. It's just not a good look.